Mark it or forget it. Let's face it, you could have the greatest product in the world, and if you don't properly market it, if you don't get it out there and let people know that it exists and that it's the right solution for them, then it will fail, period. And the fact of the matter is, many people, when they're starting up enterprises, as so many people are right now with a product, a service, a solution, courses, whatever, marketing is almost an afterthought. Well, we're going to help you change that today with this interview with Wendi Cooper. And Wendi has spent her professional lifetime in marketing, direct-to-consumer, content creation. She's the founder of C-Spot Run Productions, which is an very early adopter in this space. Direct-to-consumer, business-to-business, direct response marketing solutions, testimonials, branded entertainment, product placement, campaign management, the whole ball of wax. And she also recently added voice-first marketing and production services. She also has her own podcast show, The Wendi Cooper Show, conversations with remarkable people over 50 years of age. So Wendi, number one question. How should I, if I'm building up some sort of enterprise in any way, shape, or form, how should I be regarding marketing in my equation?
Well, first of all, Paul, thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Good to be here. I love what you're doing with your ProBoomer. Here's the key: is it's not so much the marketing. Well, let me back up. It's absolutely the marketing. What I'm finding is key that most people aren't thinking about, because even the largest brands sometimes have, when they're launching a new product, which I've spent the past 28 years helping companies and people launch products. Everyone's a product. Everyone needs marketing to succeed. The marketing is an afterthought, right? So they go, this is this great idea, and I'm going to go do it. And then they spend a lot of money on doing it, right? Getting it ready and all of that. And then when they go to market, they haven't budgeted for it, or they don't really know how to do that. And it's really the most important thing. But what I'm concerned with today is that, number one, launching a product into the marketplace, whether it's a product, brand, service, idea, whatever it might be, it is the trickiest and most difficult thing to do. Everyone will tell you that. Everyone will tell you that. And so if you're going to reinvent yourself, let's just say, okay, so we've talked about this. And for me, reinvention, when people talk about reinventing themselves, which a lot of people now, because of COVID, are going to maybe not get their jobs back. And they're thinking about, okay, how can I now take this opportunity to all of a sudden become an entrepreneur? That's another subject to talk about, right? How to go from the corporate space to being now all of a sudden an entrepreneur. That's a very, very difficult thing to do. It's a totally different mindset. But how do you come up with the right idea or the right unique selling proposition for yourself? Let's say you're going to become a personal brand, a coach, a consultant, whatever it is. You can take a lot of classes or pay a lot of money to figure out that, okay, now I have a coaching program, right? Now I have this thing to offer. But what you don't do is you don't sit back and say, okay, what's my budget and how am I going to now create all of the creative assets that I'm going to need in order to have this product that you then are able to take the next step and market. So I want to bring some awareness to the fact that you have to really think about the pre-marketing stage, what you can afford, what's in your budget. Are you budgeting for marketing? Are you budgeting for your website? Are you talking to the right people about what your brand should look like? If you're writing a book, are you, there's a big difference between a flimsy little Amazon PDF file that gets printed and laid out poorly, than a real actual book that you've worked with someone on your artwork, on your layout, on making it look professional. This is the first thing that that represents you as a brand, is if someone orders your book and they get it and then they go, you know, what is this, right? And just because someone says, well, write a book and now you'll have a tool that you can market and you can leverage that, right? Well, write a book, have great content in it, but when you're laying it out, your artwork and everything else, don't do that on your own. Make sure that you're doing that in a professional manner, because that's your calling card. That's the same thing with your website. And websites are very, very important to have. Don't let anybody tell you that you don't need a website, right? But a bad website is extremely detrimental to your personal brand, right? So where do you go for that? Who do you talk to about that? What is your color palette? What is it that you want to say as your personal brand? Whether you have a coaching program, a consulting program, whatever it is, a book, what do you look like? So you are the product, and what do you look like to your customer? Because that's extremely important. And I don't think a lot of people think about that. I think they just think, well, I'm going to figure out what it is that I have to offer. Let's just say people over 50. Yeah? I'm going to figure out what it is that I have to offer. And maybe you have this wonderful, unique skill to offer, but you don't know the first thing about putting it all together. So now you've figured out, well, I have this wonderful knowledge and wisdom to share with people, and I really believe that it's of value, right? And I'm going to put that into a coaching program or a consulting thing or whatever. Well, how do you come up with your packages? How do you come up with how much you're going to charge, right? What is a fair amount to charge? How do you come up with your freebies? What's your social media? What does all of this look like before you even get started? Don't get started and then try to figure it out later, right? Don't do that. Figure this all out and then get started, because then your road is going to be a lot easier and you're not going to waste a whole lot of money.
Yeah, you raise a multitude of important points here, and one thing that I think a lot of people don't realize: you go into the major brands, the major companies, and when it's the marketing department, when it's the chief marketing officer, they're not just looking at advertising and social media. They're also looking at what is my product, or how you raised a very good point. If you're thinking about marketing and you've got that course, for instance, or whatever it is, that how am I going to market this? How am I going to let people know about it? Ultimately, how am I going to convince them that this is the right thing for me, is what helps drive exactly how you execute what your deliverables are. So as an initial step, obviously, we could do a 3-month course on this. We could do a multi-year course on this. But as a first step, you've given me that realization that it's an absolute must. Without it, you will fail. You will fail, period. You'll be one in a trillion people who don't. It seems like I've got two paths. One, I'm doing a shoestring budget. I can't hire marketing expertise. Or maybe I can bring in somebody affordable that aligns with me and I think can help me. If I got to do it myself, what do I do?
Well, I think that there's a difference between a marketing consultant or someone to help you with your marketing than someone to help you build your personal brand. Okay. So I'm going to stick with the reinvention thing. Okay. Because I think your audience is more about, okay, I really want to have something to do in the second half of my life. Right. And I'm going to tap into my unique, selling proposition or value and my wisdom. But how do I package that? How do I really package that? And that's really, I don't see that as someone, of course they should know marketing, but marketing comes after you create your package. So what is the right package for you? And how do you allocate your funds in creating that package? This is key, because even the greatest coach in the world had to be packaged. Okay, Tony Robbins. I'm going to give you an example. Tony Robbins got his start in the infomercial business. I got my start in the infomercial world, right? Well, people don't remember that Tony Robbins was really he was an infomercial. Okay, and it was a Guthrie Ranker infomercial, and he got his start, and he told his sad story of living in his Volkswagen. I don't think he even fits in a Volkswagen, but I don't know if it's a Volkswagen, but living in his car, working as a janitor and eating, $1 hamburgers, because that's all he could afford. And then one day he woke up and he had this epiphany. And then all of a sudden he became Tony Robbins. I really don't know how that happened. But what happened was Guthrie Ranker was looking for a really good personal story. And they took Tony and they turned him into this amazing personal story of success, right? Now, he wasn't successful yet. He hadn't sold any programs. He hadn't become the Tony Robbins that we know, the NLP master, right? He was just this guy with a possibly good story. So Guthrie Ranker packaged him. They spent their money to package him, to create an infomercial where basically he told his story. And that was the genesis and the rise of Tony Robbins. And then there was another one and another one and another one. It was actually the first self-help program ever done in an infomercial. Now, why I am talking about Tony Robbins is because everyone knows who Tony Robbins is. But imagine if Tony tried to do that on his own. Imagine if Guthrie Ranker, the masters of packaging, hadn't come along and packaged him. He probably would not be the success that he is today. I'm going to tell you, he wouldn't be the success he is today. Okay? So if people can think of themselves as, what kind of box am I putting myself in? What color is that box? What shape is that box? For example, I went into Costco just 2 days ago with my husband, and I go down my favorite aisle, which is the candy aisle. I'm a packaging freak. I've helped many companies package their products. Over to my right is this beautiful turquoise blue box by Godiva that has how it was formed and the colors that were used. And I'm in Costco, right? That, my eye immediately goes to that. Now, I'm not a fan of Godiva chocolate. I'm really not. But I wanted to buy that box because I loved it. I've always said, if in packaging, in presentation and packaging, if someone doesn't want to eat it or have sex with it, it's not any good, right? It really needs to pop off the shelf. When you go into Macy's or Bloomingdale's or Neiman Marcus or wherever it might be during the holidays and you walk through the cosmetic section, you see the most beautiful packaging, right? For a candle, for whatever. You have to think of yourself this way. You have to think, how am I going to package whatever it is that I'm doing and presenting it to whomever it is that is my customer? How do I stand out? How am I unique? I might be selling the same old thing that everybody else is selling. I'm a coach. I'm going to I'm going to teach you whatever. I'm a consultant and I'm going to bring you marketing, advice or whatever it might be. But first and foremost, we all must think about how we package ourselves, right? And to your point, finding someone that does, this is the problem, okay? The problem is that how do you know? How do you know who to go to? How do you know who to hire? How know what your marketing budget really should be, right? I come from the direct response space. So in direct response for the past 20 something years, we look at everything from a very low cost of goods. How do we launch a product at a certain multiple through television, now digital or whatever it might be. And then we have to factor in all the back end costs. And then we still have to make a profit, right? So I come from the mindset of creating creative assets, commercials, websites or whatever, from a cost-effective standpoint with a nice ROI on the other side of it. So I'm trained in that efficiency. Other people, companies or whatever, they're not. They're kind of trained in the efficiency of how much money can I get from the client, because this is going to be a one-off for me. I'm going to come in, I'm going to help them with something. And I want to make as much money as I possibly can because I'm a marketing consultant, right? So you have to seek out and find the companies that are there, such as my company, where we understand your pain. We get to the bottom of who you are, what you should look like, what colors you should use, what is it that you want to represent, what makes you unique. And then also, how do you then get somebody to click on that button that basically says, I want to work with you and I want to pay you. And that's the most difficult thing, because you can get people to your website. You can get people to your Instagram page. You can get them there. But once they're there, can you get them to convert? Can you get them to click the magic button?
And and you raise a very good point I mean, I've benefited somewhat from the fact that people look at marketing, or like what I do as a content creator, you know, for corporations and stuff. It's just like magic, voodoo almost.
Right.
Where one thing that I always caution people on is especially to make sure that whomever you're bringing in, whether it's a company or it's a freelancer, you know, somebody off of Fiverr or Upwork, are they going to put in the time to understand you and your market? Because sometimes people just almost boil it. Or here's a great idea. Well, I have had millions of great ideas.
Right.
That doesn't mean that it's going to help sell you or sell your product. And that kind of leads us into, well, what if I can't even pursue? What if I am just literally using spare change to at least get things going? What can I do? What can I do on my own? How can I get started? Because I got to imagine there are a lot of people, especially with these financial challenges.
Yes,
So many people
and there are. So here's my advice on that. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say, I don't have financial challenges. We all have financial challenges, right? So what do I do for myself? And here's the other thing. I know we talk about it a lot in the over 50, you know, world, that, you know, we have to continue to learn. We have to continue to increase our skill sets as we're older. And I've taught myself how to do things, right? But I have that creative, I'm a creative, you know, and in advertising marketing, it's kind of like the Don Draper thing, right? You know, when you have that creative ability innately and you're creative, I kind of have an edge. But look, up until just a few years ago, I hired a website designer. And then I started to learn how to do it myself because there's so many programs out there. Canva is one, which is exceptional. I've been with Canva now for, I think, 5 years since it launched, and it is a remarkable prosumer. You can go on and you can really learn how to do these things yourself. You can do everything. It's grown now from videos to Instagram posts to everything. You can do everything. You still have to have a somewhat of a creative nature behind you and know what works and what doesn't work as far as headlines and things like this. But I would say that most people are in that position. They don't have a lot of money to spend on doing that. Okay, so you do have to have money to spend. Number one, I think it's a not a lot, but you have to have some. So step back and you say, okay, what can I allocate from my budget if I'm going to become this, you know, product, brand, service, idea, basically. If you're going to become a product, I'd like to talk about us as a product. If you're going to become a product, how much money do I have to bring my product to market? How much money do I have to create my product? Okay. So you got to determine what your budget is, because it is going to cost you money. It's not going to cost you a whole lot of money. Don't be fooled by the fact that digital agencies will say, you know what, give me $10,000 a month and I'll do this for you. Yeah, or give me $30,000 a month over 3 months, and this is what's going to happen. That's where you're going to throw your money in a endless bucket of shame. Okay, do that research. Do it step by step. I think when I was talking to you before, I mentioned the fact that we often think, oh, wouldn't it be wonderful, or we're often swayed by all of the emails that we get or the social media things that we see as we're scrolling, or what people are doing and other people are doing. Oh, I can do that. You know, the reality is there's a time commitment. How much time do you have? You might have all the time in the world right now. The time commitment, the budget commitment, and their budget commitment to bring it to market. That's a totally different thing. You know, how are you going to reach your audience? Do you have an audience? Let's say you want to use a podcast as a marketing tool. I think a podcast is the best marketing tool there is. Why? Because podcasts are almost relatively free and easy to do, right? So seek out the things that don't cost a bunch of money, like podcasting. That's why everybody does it. Yeah, low cost to entry, but understand how you can use that as a magical marketing tool for building your audience and bringing people into your world. Don't just do a podcast because everybody else is doing it. Think about why you're using a podcast in order to be a marketing tool to drive people to a destination. You need a destination, right? You can't just have a website. You need to have something on that website. Right? I mean, there's all of these different pieces. It's hard to kind of put it into a very concise picture because everybody's going to be different as to what they want to do. But there are a few things that everyone needs to think about prior to going to market is what are you marketing? And how do you create those creative assets and those assets like your photography, your color palette I think it's so important. I see people on Instagram that have tens of thousands of followers, right? On Instagram, over 50. I'm going to stay in that category. Then you go to their website, you go to the link, click on the link, you click on the link and you go to a website that is so horrible. Just horrible. And what happens? I bolt.
Well, my estimate, you got me. And then I was like, because in fact, I was just even responding a personal branding coach on her a LinkedIn post that she did. And it was talking about, for instance, your photo and your clothing and your background and stuff like that. And somebody kind of, oh, it's too bad that we have to be superficial about it. And it's like, you know what? It's not superficial. It's being properly representative. Because, for instance, you go on LinkedIn, what's the very first thing every single human being on the planet looks at? Your picture.
That's
and
right.
They're going to, this is the way we're wired. This is the way we said, oh, that's a saber-toothed tiger. I need to run.
That's right.
We immediately get that impression. And you're right. If I go to a website and it's confusing or it's lame or it's outdated, that's going to give me a negative impression. In fact, sometimes I say sometimes it's not as much what you do, it's what you don't do. And you don't look outdated, you don't look cheap, but you also don't look like you're going for too much.
It's interesting. I'm not sure what's wrong with people these days because, you can literally go on to Wix. And if you have any sense whatsoever of creative and you have the right assets. Okay, Paul, so what your personal branding coach was basically saying, have the right assets to use, right? Have the right creative assets. Make sure your photography is done the right way. Right. Have all of the like if you've ever done videos, whatever, put your website together so it represents you 100% to the best that you can be represented. And that is not a difficult thing to do. If you're using a crappy photo, it automatically diminishes the quality of you and your website by a lot. Right. So make sure that you have the right, and that takes somebody that really doesn't take a genius these days. As long as your photography is being done by someone that knows what they're doing, you don't have a bunch of stuff in the background. Even now you can like eliminate the background from photos very easily. There's an effect that you can use to do that. But it's all about layout, navigation, ease of use. And from a direct response point of view, we always made things easy for the customer. Don't put them through the mill, right? Do you remember back in the days when it's like, if you want to return something, you bought something from TV or the web or whatever, and you wanted to return it, it was like the passion of these direct response companies, which is why I was so different, was, let's just put them through hell
so they give up.
Yeah. So they give up, right? That's not what you should do. You should make it easy peasy so that they love you for a long time. Right? Just make it super easy. This is where Amazon makes A to Z, guaranteed. This is why they grew and became so large. So you always want to be able to present yourself like I almost said the Kobe Bryant of the NBA, or like you're, LeBron James. That's how you have to think about yourself. And sometimes it's okay. Here's a good point. It's very difficult for people to write about themselves. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult for people to even know what is right. You might, because you become so subjective about your own photographs, about what's being said. It's very difficult. This is why if you hire someone to help you with a website, it's a real creative process, right? I would sit down and I get to know you. You had once asked me a couple of weeks ago, well, what would be the first step? And I would sit across the table from someone and I would say, tell me where you want to be. Where do you want to be in 5 years, right? How do you see yourself? What are your favorite colors? What is I just dig and dig and dig to understand them as a person. And then I try to walk away and I'll come back after doing lots of research, just like if you're creating a product, right? Developing a new invention. What is out there? How can we bring a new, unique selling proposition to you, make you stand out from everyone else, even though you're selling the same thing? Let's say you're selling a coaching service or whatever, but what makes you stand out? And when someone does go to your destination, how do they go, wow, I want to work with this person? I don't care. I don't even need to read. The best pitch is not having to say a word, right? So they go there and they go, oh, so creative. I love it, right? Oh, I love this. I love that. It's a whole visual, visceral feeling that comes across somebody that then gets them to really click that button and want to know more.
Yeah, I want to go back over a couple of points, and you're absolutely right about that. And of course, then the trick is how you do that. So number one is being authentic. I mean, and you're also right. It's I've often said you can't market yourself. Ergo, even I've learned that, and I'm in the business. I had been in the business for years, and being authentic and genuine is really important, which also ties back into your podcast thing, like I'm doing. And in fact, is a key approach of my initial low cost. I'm not bootstrapping, I'm sock strapping, the separate and everything. But what I'm doing is I'm also offering things like this very interview. As much as I'm doing this altruistically and for a good reason, and it fits in with my intent to help people over 50 do something other than traditional retirement and thrive and rather than survive, with getting advice from people such as you, this becomes one of those reasons that people will engage with me, and that whether on social media or on my site, it's a part of my brand. So your thing about the podcast is that, unless I'm selling smart water in this beautiful container, OxyClean or something like that, which is a little bit different, but even that, you can apply the organic marketing approach, which you are providing people with something. You're doing a video, you're doing a podcast, you're doing a social media blurb that's actually giving me a piece of useful information in your domain.
And solving a problem.
You're giving it away. Yes, you're solving a problem.
Yeah.
What that does is that it's like, hey, if you want more, or if you need more than this, come to my site, engage with me, and then you take it from there. Organic
So,
marketing.
For instance, I'm 65 years old, and so I went through a whole year last year, 2019. My year sucked, right? And I went through cancer treatments and this and that and the other thing, and it sucked. And but during that entire year, I was thinking to myself, okay, what is it that I really want to do when I'm past all of this stuff? What is it that I really want to focus on? Now I've been doing creative and helping companies launch products ever since 1994. So for a very long time, sold billions of dollars of products, from live shopping to infomercials to direct response to digital, you name it. I've done that. You can go to my website and you can see all of the work that I've done. You've probably owned some of the products that I've worked on. But what is it that I want to do? Do I still want, here's a question people are asking themselves, right, Paul? Do I want to continue to do what I've been doing? So, right. So into my third act or my second half of life, do I really want to continue to do what I'm doing? Well, maybe this is the time when I'm going to reinvent myself. Okay. But what is it that I want to do? This is a question that's asked. So I was asking myself that question, and I was seeking things all over the place. Now I've been podcasting or doing live streaming since 2008. So I've always said that my podcast is not meant to be anything but a marketing tool. And like you said, I'm on your podcast, or I'm on your show right now because I see the value of people listening to me. You see the value of having me on, and But I also am the same as you, right? I'm the same as everybody else. I need to find ways to market myself. And this is how I'm marketing myself right now. I am marketing my services basically by saying, hey, Paul, I love what you're doing. Is it possible for us to talk about what I do? And after a few conversations, that's what happened, which is awesome. So understanding and grabbing a hold of looking at the different various ways to use different, what's the word for it? But different assets. So if you have a podcast, sorry, I got a little off topic. What I wanted to talk about was the voice first world and how I decided over the course of the year, I was introduced to voice first last year, meaning Alexa, what's my news? Hey, Google, getting into where it's voices activated. So voice marketing, voice creative. I decided and I landed on the fact that I wanted to do voice creative for people and companies getting into the voice first world, which means having some type of destination on a smart home device. Okay. Amazon has Alexa. Echo, the Echo device. So there's a thing called Alexa skills. Well, you can create an Alexa skill, which is an audio file, a flash briefing, but how do you do that, right? So it's like super easy. Amazon makes everything easy for everybody to do it, and it's free. But it sucks if it sucks. So I'm thinking, well, how do I help people get into the voice first world from what I love to do, which is the creative aspect? Because I see that lacking. And so I got super excited about that field. It's growing, but how do you use a flash briefing, which is free? Okay, to your point, seek out the things that you can afford to do. How do you use a flash briefing to amplify your voice, your brand, and your marketing, right? So now if you have a book on Amazon, let's say, or you have a product on Amazon, why wouldn't you have a flash briefing on Amazon or a skill that then allows you to talk about your book or the contents of your book? And hey, everyone, if you want to buy my book, you can just get it on Amazon. It is a free commercial that's 5 to 10 minutes long, but you need the creative to be designed and developed. And that's what I'm specializing in. Creating sonic logos, creating original music, and making sure that this audio is executed beautifully so that your brand is heard in a way where people respect it and want to engage with it and go to the next step. So no matter where you are in your process, I think that my expertise for the past 20 something years in helping, I don't want to even say people, I've helped companies launch products, is that the first thing you really need to think about is what does it feel like? How am I going to get somebody to know, like, and trust me? And what is it? What's the value that I bring, and how do I stand out from everybody else? And start with that. Work with the right people in order to identify that, and don't just think. Biggest thing for me, Paul, is don't think because somebody is doing something inexpensively for you that it's not going to be good. Right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Don't think that because somebody charges a lot of money for something that it's going to be good. Right?
And we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about social media here.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I've been in the business, but from the creative content side, not the digital agency side, but I've worked with digital agencies and everything.
Yeah.
And so I probably know more than the average citizen, and yet I find it daunting of LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, all of these different things, and the fact that it's different audiences, it's different ways of conveying the information, and where's your audience? And I mean, that's daunting in and of itself. So especially for that shoestring budget person.
Well,
How do you start making sense of that?
right. That's a problem, right? Because everyone, for some reason, and I've been around since before there was a website, right? And so I've been through that whole process of products being on television, and then people saying, well, you don't really need a website, and then, well, you do need a website, and then we don't need a website, and, hashtags and the television commercial and 800 numbers and it just goes on and on and on. Okay, here, and then social media was born. It's like, okay, so every social media platform, whether it's LinkedIn or it's Facebook or it's Instagram or it's Reddit or Pinterest or what, they all specific audiences that they target. So Paul, you are a perfect example of this. Can we use your example with the ProBoomer?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So, we were talking, and you asked on LinkedIn. You asked, "What do you think of the name ProBoomer?" Right? And
Or
you
boomer,
had people.
boomer. What do you think of the term boomer?
The term boomer.
Yes,
right.
Which you prompted. You prompted that graphic,
right,
from a conversation we had. Yes.
So you had people chime in on LinkedIn, and then you asked the same question on your Facebook page, your personal Facebook page, might I add, right? Yes. And you were amazed by the difference in the response. That LinkedIn was, I don't really like it, right? That kind of thing, right? And then the other one was, yeah, Paul, that's great, go for it.
Yeah, it was like everybody on Facebook was like, the term boomer, baby boomer, love it, fine with it, own it, means something to me. Everybody except for, I think, one person, let's say, and I had probably the most comments I've had. I had a lot of engagement and comments with LinkedIn. Virtually everyone had an issue with it. In fact, my favorite one was from one woman who quoted Kierkegaard, the philosopher, "When you label me, you negate me," and which, by the way, is kind of the way I feel, and it's kind of the direction I'm heading in. So anyway, but back to your point about choosing the right platforms and the right context of those platforms. By the way, forgive me, that's what I learned from that. And I already knew, and I've been doing it. But there's some stuff I just share, LinkedIn, Facebook, my two. But there's some things I'm not sharing that on LinkedIn, or I'm not sharing it on Facebook. Yeah.
And I do that quite often, right? So I have a daily podcast that I do that's less than 5 minutes, and it's actually also a flash briefing, but I rarely share that on LinkedIn because it's kind of quirky and funny, but sometimes I do share it on LinkedIn, and then I really get, these awesome responses. But here's the deal. What you have to remember is that Instagram is a completely different audience. That is a swipe and pretty picture audience. If you have a really robust following on Instagram, they're pretty much only following you on Instagram, right? And they might be following you on Instagram because your Instagram magazine looks really cool, or you post really cool pictures, or every once in a while, maybe you're very poignant and you make a really great point and people get into a conversation. But Instagram, you must get into the conversation with the people who are conversing with you, or else, you're going to fade away. Okay. And so it takes a lot of work to be on Instagram. And yes, digital agencies might handle that for you, but, really.
And do you want to trust them to represent your mindset, what you're
and then they
trying
cost
to
money.
convey? Yep.
And then they cost money, right? So that is a free medium that then can end up costing you not only money, but a lot of time. Okay. Because you have to have consistency on social media. No matter what you do, you're learning this, you must have consistency. So people come to expect new content to be posted if you really gain a following, right? LinkedIn is absolutely 1000% more professional. Keep it professional. Don't post crap about your kid or your baby or your vacation on LinkedIn. Nothing makes me more irritated and makes me want to bolt from LinkedIn than when I see somebody doing a kissy face or something on LinkedIn in a video. This is where I go to communicate with my professional and build my professional network. It is extremely valuable. And LinkedIn, I think for that reason, is very important. With your LinkedIn profile, always make sure that your LinkedIn profile really represents you in a professional manner. Facebook, there's Facebook groups. Facebook a personal profile. You can't have a page, business page, without having a personal profile. As soon as you posted to that on Facebook, all of your friends and family basically said, "You rock, Paul. That's an awesome thing. I love Boomer," because that's what they thought you wanted to hear. Everyone on LinkedIn basically said, "This guy is smart. He's asking a question and he wants honest feedback." This is a very different situation. So understand who your audience is, right? And then know what action to take from it, right? So let's say you only posted on Facebook and you asked all your friends and family, what do you think? And then I come along, right? You hire me, I come along and I say, well, I don't know. Have you given it some thought or whatever? And you look at me as the client and you say, no, everybody on Facebook loved it, so I'm keeping it. Well, who's your target audience? Who is it that you're reaching? Are you selling to your friends and family? No, they would never buy it from you, right? But, listen to the audience that pertains to who you want to sell a product to. If they love it, then that's great. Also, like you said, we can go on for years talking about this stuff. Social media, use social media as a free medium, but understand that unless you really want to reach people, you do have to do paid post and boost your post and things like this, right? Once again, boils back down to a budget. Now, what about the person, Paul, that already has 10,000, 20,000 followers on Instagram? Let's just say you're over 50, you're in that over 50 world on Instagram, which is a huge world, very big. You're posting every day to IGTV, you're spending all of this time and you want to monetize it. How do you monetize that? Well, of course, you can be an influencer, but now even influencers are going to have a problem with Instagram. I don't know. I have to tell you, it's a destination. Once again, look at them as multiple destinations. Look, depending on the audience, you can find me on Instagram. Follow me here. You can find me in a flash briefing in your news in Alexa. You can find me there on Amazon. You can find me on Facebook in a professional page, not your personal profile. Please don't. If you're professional, have a professional page. You can create a group on Facebook. Facebook is mostly for over 45-year-old people. Nobody young is on Facebook anymore. So determine what it is that you're selling, who you want to sell it to, and then use your social media, yes, because it's free, as best you can. But when you decide to start paying for social media, that's when you have to be very, very careful. And I always say that intelligent media planning is the key. You start really small, and then you learn and build, learn and build, learn and build. And that's the key. Don't go, okay, I'm going to spend $500 today and see what happens on Instagram or on Facebook. No, spend 5, 10, learn, 15, 20, tweak. This is an old direct response television tactic, right? That is obviously became part of the social media digital tactics of marketing. So social media is important, but keep it consistent and make sure you are always representing yourself. Once you've settled in on how you're representing yourself, continue to represent yourself that way across all platforms. And so you have consistency.
And by the way, two big things there: consistency and trying things. And one thing I encourage everybody to and I learned this with corporate clients where I was dealing with very sophisticated digital agencies and budgets for that, as well as through ProBoomer, is that also too, there are so many mitigating factors, so many vagaries. I mean, it can literally be not only the day of the week and the time that you posted it, but also what's going on that week and everything. It can make a huge difference. And you're right, especially if you don't have much budget, you got to get out there and just do it. And, I've gotten personal branding advice and I pretty much applied it myself where, I'm posting something 5 days a week.
Right. Me too.
Sometimes I'm just sharing an article. Hey, here's my take, wow, I really found blah, blah, blah about this fascinating. boom, there it is. Or I'm posting a clip from an interview like this, because just the breadth of it, and the fact that, you know, not everybody is on any of those channels every single day either.
I have to tell you, the other day on LinkedIn, there's a lot of webinars that you can watch on LinkedIn, which is great, right? So Ad Age had this one, and Ad Age, because I'm in advertising and marketing, right? So I follow a different kind of set of people, but I also follow everyone that's kind of in the ageist or an ageism kind of sector also, because of the shows that I do. But this one that I watched because of what's happening with Black Lives Matter, it was Ad Age had on the 3 founders of Saturday Morning, which is a Black-owned advertising agency. And these creative directors all came from, you know, like huge houses, huge agencies. And they started Saturday Morning. And they talked about what it was like being a Black person in the advertising world, right? And it was so interesting for me because I'm in that world. I don't really work in agencies because I am an agency, but to just listen to their stories and why they created. So here's my point. I reached out to them right after that. And now who am I connected with? I'm connected with the founders of Saturday Morning, which is this awesome agency. And these guys, and they gladly connected with me. So I use LinkedIn to build my connections, pretty much, period. I want to be able to email or call somebody like these guys that, you know, I met. I love being connected in that way. They connected with me. That meant, what did that mean? That meant they went to my profile, they looked at who I was, and they agreed to connect with me. Now, I'm a first connection to Tony Robbins. I'm a first connection to Gary Vaynerchuk. I'm a first connection because I reach out to the people who I believe can not only have the, well, let me just say it, can further my career, right? I mean, come on, you know, build those connections. So I use LinkedIn in that way. And I do share, I get into conversations. I share my opinions on LinkedIn. It's the one place where I can share my professional opinion and not feel as though I'm going to get somebody to say, oh, you're, you know, wake up, woman. You know, I'm not going to get that nasty comment back at me. Whereas YouTube, you know, YouTube is the second most searched search engine, right? So do you have all of your ProBoomer things on YouTube? You have a YouTube channel.
Yeah, and this will be on YouTube also. Yeah,
exactly. And it dawned on me yesterday that I don't really talk so much about my YouTube channel. I have everything for the past 8 years that I've ever done is on my YouTube channel, but I forget to talk about it in my podcast. Oh, you can check me out on YouTube. When the reality is that YouTube is the second largest search engine.
Right. And by the way, ultimately, that's where I'll be heading for more of a point of emphasis, because I can promote this interview, which is, you know, going to be almost an hour long. I can promote it on LinkedIn and Facebook, but and I think Facebook would let me upload the whole thing, but people aren't going to watch it on Facebook. On YouTube, as I've been doing yoga for the last 16 years, every single morning when I'm doing yoga, I'm listening to somebody on it. And so, especially for the organic marketing, yes, it can be absolutely huge.
But you're also going to find that, so know your audience. You're also going to find on YouTube, but there are people that just like to be nasty and say crap.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. And you know what? And by the way, expect it. That's going to happen. Yeah. By the way, I heard a really great piece of insight advice, and I wish I could attribute it. I can't remember who said it, but I've actually heard several people say it. When you start putting stuff out there, people are going to throw darts at you, or they're just jerks out there.
Yes, especially on YouTube.
But even if somebody disagrees with you or is more thoughtful of it and just say you're flat out wrong or whatever, first of all, realize this is hard to embrace. Do not take it personally, because they are not attacking you as a person. They're saying they disagree with your approach or your take on something or your method. That's totally a professional thing, saying, Paul, I don't like your shirt, you know, but that doesn't mean they don't like me. So don't take it personal. It will happen. It will happen.
Oh, it absolutely happens. And so you you have to, if you're going to be a personal brand, let's just say, and you're going to put yourself out there in social media other than what you have so far in your life, which is just your personal stuff, get ready for people to say stuff, right? And you have to have a thick skin. That's why not everyone is cut out to have a podcast. Not everyone is cut out to be on video. Not everyone knows how to do that, right? I see the worst testimonials in my shot. I saw them last night on national television, and I looked at my husband and I went, who shot that commercial? That is just horrible. But yet there it was. Somebody got paid to shoot that commercial, right?
Well, and even if it's bad, at least somebody's putting it out there too. That's another thing.
Yeah, I suppose so. But just know how to use cheap media, social media, a flash briefing on Amazon, an Alexa skill. We can develop those. We develop those for people, right? And the whole key there is that it's free, right? Mm-hmm. Amazon is giving you 0 to 10 minutes of audio where you can just load that up every day, every week, make it consistent, and use that as another destination for people to go say whatever you want to say in it. I'm serious. And it's free. But who knows about that? Right. Who knows about that?
I know. So shh. That's something I'm thinking about doing too. Don't get the word out there. I want to be like one of the early people like you.
Exactly. But okay, let me just say that if you do one of those, you still now need to make sure that you market it in order to let people know that that you're there. Okay, so that's where the marketing is in. So now you're going to add your little icon to everything that you do. I have a note here on my screen where I said, make sure to I just want to say everything that you do when you're building your product, brand, or service, basically it's like a fabric. There's different threads that create this piece of material, right? And those threads can be very different, but they all eventually create one fabric. And that's really how you have to think of your personal brand or whatever it is that you're launching. How do you bring all of these threads together to create the perfect fabric?
Yeah, excellent point. So bottom line, in the first place, you have to think about marketing upfront. That is just as important as, people usually don't look at it's not just what your idea is, what your concept, what your offering is. You've got to think about distribution. How are you going to connect with people? What's the voice? The huge thing that you mentioned is that you also have to go beyond looking at why you think it's so great. I don't care why you think it's great. I only care about why I might think it's great, which means look at it from, you are making a value proposition. Ideally, you're solving a problem.
Yes.
You're fulfilling a need.
Problem solution.
You've got to look at it from who you're selling to's point of view, not your point of view, which was a point you brought up earlier that I really wanted to emphasize. Wendi, how can people get in touch with you?
My email is Wendi Cooper at mac.com or Wendi at CSpotRun, and it is the letter C. CSpotRun. My website is cspotrun.com or wendycooper.com. I do have 2 podcasts. One podcast is The Wendi Cooper Show, speaking of it. Sorry, I just changed the name. The Wendi Cooper Show, Conversations with Remarkable People Over 50. If you go to my website, you can see it, but it's everywhere you download your podcast. Also, it is every iHeart, Pandora, wherever. That is an interview format. So I do interview and have conversations, tell stories with people over 50. And then my flash briefing that I have is called Speaking of Age Daily with Wendi. And that's also a podcast. Under 5 minutes, guaranteed fresh, real, refreshing, and raw. And it is just where I create these fun little vignettes about life about life. And, it's really speaking from age as opposed to speaking of age, but it's real cute. And I hope everybody listens. And I would love to work with anyone that is really seeking to define what it is and who they are in order to launch themselves into a new career or into the marketplace.
And that is Wendi with an I, for those of you who are listening to this on a podcast. So I want to thank you, Wendi. Great advice, great insight for all of us. Thanks so much. Thank you.